and welcome to this week's edition of Shaynel's 3 Cents, where I'm your host, Shaynel Caldwell, founder and executive director of Our Blended Families. And again, I say welcome to you that are able to tune in today. We are very excited. Another day, another week, and some wonderfully cold weather here in the DMV area. But even more importantly, today is January 11th, and already it's been a hell of a year. From a political standpoint, we've already gotten our government shut down. We have a lot of services, a lot of folks that are not getting paid, particularly folks in the FBI, folks from DHS, folks from Border Patrol, people from the FAA. So there are a lot of people right now. I believe the last counted numbers are almost close to 800,000 folks that are not being paid. And a lot of those folks are actually working and have missed their paychecks today. So again, as our president says, we want to give them our thoughts and prayers. But again, if you know someone, you're connected to a friend or a relative, invite them over for dinner, take them out for drinks, inquire whether or not their kids need anything during this time. Because again, we are all part of this community, and we're all the purpose is to hopefully make sure that we're supporting one another. So as we roll into more important things and rolling into, of course, our topic for today, we're going to discuss the whole wonderful R. Kelly thing. Notwithstanding all the things that we've seen on social media, people that are saying, oh, he did this or he did that, and the young girls did this and society did that. We're going to talk a little bit about all of that. But as usual, we're going to talk about it from my perspective as a certified family life educator. How do we prevent it from happening? And where do we place the accountability? Again, you cannot change anything unless you understand where the accountability lies. You have to start somewhere. So with that, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to get right into the show with my 3 awesome guests today. And again, if you bear with us, we'll be right back shortly to discuss Surviving R. Kelly, the Lifetime docudrama. We'll see you back after this break. With our panel today discussing our topic, Surviving R. Kelly, the Lifetime docudrama, with my guest, Mr. Valerio Johnson.
Hello, Facebook.
The beautiful and lovely Pam Hawk.
Hey.
And the awesome Mr. David Washington.
What's going on, Facebook?
Yeah. So again, I want to say thank you all for coming out today. I know that each of you have had some friends, some families, and some other community interactions from people that have been discussing this topic. And I'd also like to say, in the spirit of transparency, all of us are over 40, so this ain't really nothing new, except for David. But I was talking with my son the other night, and I was sharing with him, my thoughts about it because he's helping out a little bit. And he said, well, Mom, I watched part of it. He said, but I thought this and I thought that. And I started giggling to myself because I had my son in 1992. He just recently turned 26. And I remember back in 91 thinking, gosh, I love R. Kelly, that new album back in the day. He came out with his bomb. And then that head scratch, dang, it's too bad that I'm too old for him. So again, and I was 18 at the time. So this is really nothing new. But the devastation and the things that, of course, we want to chat about is, how do we get here and how do we prevent this from happening? So want to be mindful that we want to talk about the abuse that was alleged because I was kind of shocked when it came out years ago that not only did he not have a predilection for young women, but that he apparently was running a cult and allegedly running a cult. So that was kind of news to me as well. And then you also have folks on one side of the table that says, can you really be held hostage in a mansion? Did he have the Donald Trump wall where you couldn't get over it, you couldn't get out, security systems being chained up? So let's discuss that a little bit. What were your thoughts when you first heard about the cult? Because as I mentioned before, I think we all knew about his interests, but the whole keeping people against their will.
First of all, I'm mad that I had to watch it to be on this show. I had to fight through it. I mean, I don't know. It's crazy, right? I'm like you, right? Or the people you said. I don't know how they were stuck in the house. I didn't see why they just couldn't leave out. Like the one girl that was narrating, like her sister or her cousin, it's like, how was you moving in and out of the house? Right. And everybody else was stuck in these rooms. Like, and why were you allowed to see them stuck in the room, but you didn't help them leave out of the room, or you didn't call the police to come?
It's too many unanswered questions.
The whole documentary was weird. I'm not negating the truth or the truth in the allegations. I'm certain there's a lot of truth there, but a lot of stuff just didn't add up for me, and it's just weird.
And I'll piggyback and echo everything that you said. And I didn't watch the whole thing, I'll be honest. I saw bits and pieces of it. But I did see the interview that Drea Kelly, his
ex-wife
of 11 years. And I didn't even know that I didn't even know he was married.
Right. Because that was such a foreground.
Right.
Well, that was for marketing purposes. That was for marketing purposes because they wanted all the single women to be going crazy over him. And we usually don't want to be attracted to men. Oh, he got a woman. I don't want to see that. So back in the day, that was the marketing practice. Keep your boo in the bag.
But they were okay, well, I'll give them that. But her platform that she has now, the way she utilizes it, it just makes her claim of abuse seem disingenuous,
exaggerated.
Yeah, and if you follow her on social media, my baby daddy, but you're so docile when it comes to Lifetime and all of these other talk shows, and you're crying, and I'm a survivor of domestic abuse, and I work with other ladies that are survivors of domestic abuse, and how her energy,
her demeanor was off.
It was way off, and this Me Too movement, it just you look at it with a side eye. It's like I believe that there was some level of abuse, granted, but
that's that $40 million talking.
Exactly.
And people gotta live. People gotta
live. Right. And then immediately, now I'm big on YouTube, so immediately after that interview that she did with Lifetime, if you go to her Instagram page and you look at the interview. And then she went on YouTube. Oh, my baby daddy, I'm about to go work on this book deal, and my baby daddy. And I was like, wait a minute.
Is that the one she's in the car with the dude?
Yes.
Who is that dude?
I think that's her new boo, her baby daddy.
That's her new support system.
Oh.
Right, exactly. So, and her energy just like did a 180. She was just all the way live, but you were just crying, and I seen her on The View. No, that's what it was. It was after the interview that she did on The View, where she was crying and she gave certain accounts of the abuse that she had experienced, and it seemed scripted. But after the interview, she was in the car with the guy, and they was turned up, and I was like, yeah.
So the most troubling thing to me was the linear pathology of how you look at R. Kelly and the renownedness of and the star figure of who he is, and looking at the way he was brought up, in the church, and then was seemingly molested by his family member, which turned out to be his sister, for what I'm told, and just to see how that all comes full circle.
The pathology of it all.
The pathology of it all, and the thing to me that sort of made it worse is the simple fact that he has 3 kids. 2 of them are, I believe, girls.
Girls and one boy.
And one boy. And to sort of knowing that in the background, really kind of understanding the connection that has with the mental instability that he exhibits, with his continuous assault on young women of color. This isn't necessarily an issue that's multiracial. This is strictly pointed at one particular race, and that's young black girls who he has exploited over the actual years. And his daughters are the same age, if not a little older, which means that while all this was going on, this didn't play in the back of his mind. This is something that
this could be happening to one of my daughters.
And that happened to multiple types of women. And the sad part about it is he made it appear as if this was all legalized consent, which was, across the United States at the age of 16. He met some of these girls when they were 12 and 13 years old, which is, crazy, considering that, as I said, he was married to a wife who sort of played out in the background of things and kind of ignorant to the whole situation.
Yeah.
Which is a separate story.
You can't be with
We're going to take a quick cut to show a display. And again, Facebook folks, we apologize. You'll have to go to YouTube to check out the display. But what we did is I obtained some information from a government website. And this website that was redirected is called ageofconsent.net. And so I have a map posted that indicates the age of consent across the United States, so that you can see the particular states and where those age limits lie. And 31 states have legal age of consent of 16.
Illinois does.
31 states. 8 states have it listed at 17. 11 are at 18. So again, the majority of the states say that a minor can consent at the age of 16. And it should be noted, those of you that cannot see the map, note that in D.C., the legal age of consent is 16. Virginia is also 16. Maryland is also 16. Now, the crazy backwoods states, we're always making jokes about people in West Virginia. Their age of consent is 18. So you can't marry your cousin until 18.
That's right.
Wow.
Even New York, larger states that have large populations, New York and California, their age of consent is 18. And even Nevada, their age of consent is 16. So these laws don't just come into play by happenstance, and you want to believe, and we can go back live, Rob, but we want to believe that the laws are made because of public opinion and things that we want. And so a lot of states tend to recognize that while not every young person is mature, some of them are. Then we have to look into facts and, of course, science at young women do tend to mature faster than young men. Now, I'm still going to reel that back because that only means the age of consent means that you can't be prosecuted for a felony.
Yes.
You still can be prosecuted for a misdemeanor, but you cannot be prosecuted for a felony. So let's talk about mature 16-year-olds. So before I get the panel in, I'm going to tell a little story. I I was 16 once, long time ago. But I had a 32-year-old boyfriend. And he wasn't my boyfriend. He was just some grown man that was having fun with me.
He was paying for stuff.
with me. And he had a real nice, shiny little red Corvette.
You got to drive it?
I wish that I did. But I didn't even have a driver's license. But, yes, he picked me up from high school. And my friends were, and can I get a ride? I'm like, no, but it's a two-seater, so you can't get a ride. But notwithstanding, these things do happen. Now, I thought that I was mature. You couldn't tell me nothing. Of course, I couldn't tell any grown people that I was hanging out with a 32-year-old because I knew that it was wrong, and I, of course, would have been reprimanded as such. So
Why is it wrong?
let's have that conversation.
Why is it wrong?
Well, part of the reason why it's considered statutory rape is because they say that young people, while their bodies are developing, some of their minds are developing, they still don't have the mental capacity to consent.
But the
So
law
that's why
said that
it's being
16 was good
Well, the law says 16 is good. You can get up to a year
for.
statutory rape, 16, 17, 18.
So the 32-year-old guy that you was dating at 16.
He could have got, and in the state of California, he could have told his defense if this thing all went to court and, you know, my parental units would have said anything, he could have probably gotten 6 months to a year. But he wouldn't have went to prison because I was at the age of consent.
What?
Pam, do you know any young women that did anything like that? Or is this like new? Has no one ever heard of this before?
No, so
You can consent. A young girl can consent to have sex with an older man, and then the older man still go to jail, but just not big jail. You go to little jail.
Yes, he can
you
do
go
it.
to legalized corrections.
Are you in confession mode?
Like, what is that about? Like,
It's
I just think it's a dumb. I think the whole situation is dumb. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, that's why
We
they
have
say
a
the average
series
time
of-
is up to a year. In some states, less than 5 years for age of consent infraction.
We have a series of laws that seem to not work for the intended purpose, right? So you have on the books that a 16-year-old can consent to sex, right? So the 16-year-old is mature enough to think about and participate in sex, but then someone 18 and older who agrees to participate in the action with them gets penalized. That doesn't make sense to me. That
Right.
why is that the case? So
I'm gonna
if
agree.
I'm 19
And
and
let
you're
me
16,
interrupt you really quick, and I want you to
because
finish your
32
point.
is extreme. You was doing too much.
Well, yes,
But
because most states, I usually always am, but most states also have age limitations for how far apart you can be to be prosecuted. Some states, it's the alleged perpetrator can be no more than 4 years older. Some states, it's no more than 5 and 10. And incidentally, while I'm making these notations, there are 5 states that you can actually marry someone at 14 and.
With parental consent.
Yeah, with parental consent, and Illinois is one of those states.
So let's talk
In
about.
that state that
Without-
Aaliyah, and R. Kelly got married in,
Yes.
allegedly.
So what is this about then? So parental consent, and I think in the
No,
lifetime.
that's for marriage. That's for marriage.
So Aaliyah was okay they talked about that
Well,
in the documentary.
that was forged. That was forged.
Alleged.
The-
So it wasn't real.
Well,
We'll never really know.
was
The intent was
technically,
there.
The intent was
The
there.
intent was there.
The legalized documents were processed. So on paper, yes, they were married. Did Donna Houghton, or I think is it Donna or Diana? Diana
I think
Houghton.
it
I
was
can't
Donna.
think of exactly. What
Dana.
Dana Houghton.
Dana.
Her mom and father, their signatures, I believe, were forged on the actual marriage certificate, which
Led
why-
to the subsequent
which
annulment.
led to the subsequent annulment of the actual marriage itself.
So then she marries Damon Dash,
And then
who's
she-
9
well,
years older than her.
They never got married.
Never got married.
They
but
were
yes,
engaged.
They were dating.
They
This
were
is-
engaged.
they
There's
were
some
engaged.
weirdness
They were
going on out here. There's a lot of
Before
weirdness
she
going on.
passed, they were engaged.
There's a lot of weirdness going on out here.
Well, it's not really weird because how old was Kobe when him and Vanessa was dating?
Vanessa was older, right?
She
So
was
these
of
are
age.
these
She
are
was-
the untold
She was
stories
16.
Oh, 16?
of women
She was 16.
that coincidentally, I had a friend that I grew up with that actually did a poll on Facebook, and this is something that as you said, is normal behavior for young girls that was in high school, 16, 17-year-old, and always dated guys that were 21, 24.
I'm with it.
25.
I get it. I lost a lot of good girls in high school because I didn't drive.
If you had a car and you was hot and flashy.
You know, if I was 16 with a car, I might have been able to compete with the 24-year-olds with the car.
All you can do is buy me a lunch at school. Nah.
Star Crunch. I got your Star Crunch.
They were teenage guys that had cars.
Yeah. But, you know, if your parents had a little bit of money and, you know, you wasn't flipping burgers at Burger King, or, you know, the girls in high school didn't want the guys that were on the same level as them. They wanted something, a representation of something that had a greater potential.
Sound like now.
Sound like now.
As grown-ups.
Yeah, man. They want
It
the
don't
grown
change.
guy.
It didn't change, did it?
They got a little bit of change in his pocket that they can.
You 40 with a job. Now she wants 56 retired.
There you go.
No. Pam, you
I
want
want
to
your
chime in?
retirement check now.
They're coming out for the pension.
Yeah.
Right, but as Shaynel stated, we mature faster, before men. So on average. So I mean, of course.
If that is really true, then the narrative in Lifetime of these young girls and women being victimized doesn't hold true.
Well,
Either
That's
you
why they
are,
can't-
It's
That's
sexually mature, and then the minds also pick up a little bit.
well,
But
if
it's
women
mostly-
or
I'm sorry,
girls,
not sexually, physically.
if that's true, if girls are more mature than boys or women mature faster than men, then what I saw in the Lifetime video was victimization of these females as being not mature as him, because he was manipulating them and the whole family and the whole situation. So is that really true, or is that just something we like to say? Because mental and emotional manipulation typically is always something brought to the forefront that women suffer from at the hands of men. So,
Right. And it's
so
not
is that
illegal.
true? So is that true? Are women more mature than men? Because if that's the
course.
case, why are women allowed to be victimized by men emotionally and mentally? If they are more mature.
Because predators, as R. Kelly, that's why he seeks out these younger women.
No. Follow the logic.
Okay.
Follow the logic. Girls, women mature faster than boys, men. Correct? That's what we're saying.
Correct. So
At a
why
younger
in the
age.
victimization?
So at 16, evidently, because there's a culture in our society that 16, 17, 18-year-olds go after older men, right? In the R. Kelly case, he's being portrayed as the predator. But I think in the Lifetime documentary, you can make the case that there was a lot of assertiveness and aggressiveness on these young girls' part
Correct.
to get at him,
Correct.
right? So there's a scene where there's
Don't
like,
leave the parents out.
right.
Yeah,
so,
accountability.
We're actually going
Right.
to
Please don't leave.
so
the
yeah,
parents
he's
out.
going to the high school and he's standing by, and they like, oh, that's R. Kelly, and they rush to him maybe because of his fame and his stardom. So if they are truly the victims, I'm making the case that maybe they don't mature as fast or faster than we want to believe. That maturity,
When
we
you're
don't
talking
know.
about how old is he? He's like 40, 50. That doesn't
But he's been
compare.
going to high school since 21.
Yeah.
I mean, that now he's old now. His
Right.
his behavior now is not any different than his behavior at 20.
But if you're 21 and you're preying on a 14, 15-year-old, it's not equal.
And it's I think we have to step back and look at the intent behind it. Because, again, speaking for myself, at 16, I thought that I was mature. You know, I could, knew a lot about art, history, math, science, PE, all this. Look, so it's that, what did he want from me?
Right.
And what is it that these older men want from him? They're not having conversations about mortgages.
Sure
They
not.
wasn't having a conversation with me about securing their 401k.
Right.
So when people see, men in particular, oh, I see her, she look good, because I will say, 16-year-olds nowadays don't look like 16-year-olds when we was growing up. So definitely something in the milk or the water, whatever it is.
Right.
But when you see the young lady, and this also goes to, you know, how men can kind of get out of these traps, when she opened her mouth.
That's exactly what I was
As
about
soon
to
as
say.
she opened her mouth,
Right.
she, how old are you? I'm 18. No, you're not.
Right.
No, you're not. I'm out. So,
Right.
have to be considerate of that as well. It's what they want from them. Right. So if the object is, I want to have sex with this young lady, then yes, that's why they're doing it. But as a young girl, my object is I want to be adored, I want to be flashy. But if I knew he was going to the high school down the street, picking up another girl, my feelings would be hurt. So it is that we have to look at the emotional fallout behind what would happen afterwards. And as I mentioned, the situation that I got myself into, you know, I really wasn't equipped mentally and emotionally to deal with, oh my goodness, my feelings is hurt. So it's kind of two-sided. It's kind of two-sided.
It's double standard, another one.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So in the situations, because it's on the flip, my experience early on was with older women. So were they predators? I mean, we joke and call older women who pursue younger men cougars, which is actually a predatory animal, right? And it's okay.
It's seen as a.
So
we see it as. It's seen as a good thing.
That's the trophy.
And we know what she wants from us because we ain't got nothing to give her.
That is the trophy woman right there.
She wants your money.
Stamina.
She wants the.
I got money now, but back then she wanted the stamina,
the stamina and the goat pill, right?
the vitality.
Yes.
True.
So yes, the double standard has always existed.
I just wanted
we've always seen it as, you know, the trophy for men to achieve. Like, oh, I got this older woman, so that must mean that either I'm now mature, so the role reversal there. And the second thing is, if you can imagine the double standard that takes place in the households of families every day, when you think about the relationships that most young men have with their fathers, as it relates to women, we don't talk about age, right? When you think about, you know, when you and your pops hanging out and y'all like, yeah, you know, I like this girl over here, and I'm in the 9th grade, I'm a freshman, and the chick that I like that's digging me, you know, she in 11th or 12th grade, like, yeah, I'm trying to take her to the prom. You know, first thing we do is
dab you up.
You know, so it's the role reversal for us. We teach our young girls that stay away from older men because they're seen more as predatory. But when
do we really teach that? I don't have a daughter.
As a mom, you don't.
Say,
no, not for my son.
This is the daughter end. This is the daughter end of the table.
I have a son.
For my daughter, I would prefer her to be dating someone that is the same age as her.
Right.
Although, for a lot of men, when you think about back in the day, this was normal behavior for older men to be dating younger women because, one, childbearing types of issues, and they wanted to make sure that their legacy that they left, you know, God forbid, they leave this life and leave the earth or whatever. They wanted the ability for their inheritance to actually pass on through their actual children.
Is that not a cultural?
Because they also had the limited lifetime back then, so that's also
correct.
Is that not a cultural or societal thing? Because I mean, we see young girls with older men all the time, right? Now it's creepy and weird in this R. Kelly video to say 16 with him, but if this maturity thing, I have explored this maturity thing. So I'm in the 12th grade in high school, right? She's in the 9th grade. It's cool because we're in the same environment. I go off to college and I come back 20. She's a junior. Now it's not cool no more. It's weird, right? So it's just
Depends
a
on
three.
What state you live in.
No, but we not see. We arguing two different things. We're arguing legal, and we arguing maturity. Is the law correct in assuming that there's a definitive age when it comes to maturity? No, it's not true, right? But then when you look at life, you have this 40-year-old man who's married to this 31-year-old woman. It's fine. So the 9-year gap as an adult doesn't pose the same problem as a 4-year gap. So where's this maturity piece?
Right. Same with Woody Allen. I mean, it's the situation not to go off the subject, but where
No, that's exactly on subject.
Because he's like
his adopted daughter.
Yeah.
He raised his child, and then he turned around and married
And looked
her.
at her one day.
I
Dang,
didn't-
you look real
I didn't hear
good.
about that
What?
story.
No, that's old. That's old
That's
news.
old. That's old.
Before you take, I would drop a bombshell because everybody talking about R. Kelly and Aaliyah, or David Dance, Aaliyah, right?
Elvis.
Elvis
Hello.
Presley, yeah,
Jay-Z and
Exactly.
Beyonce.
Yes.
It's a 12-year age gap. And Jay-Z is on record saying he recognized Beyonce at
She was
17
Yes, yes.
and started dating her at 18. We quiet hush-hush on that. But they the hottest couple. It's all good. Age does not matter in that situation.
But I think where it
even though
becomes
she's changed,
right, it
night and
becomes
day
a
in
problem
that
when they
relationship.
become victimized, and the whole victimization piece comes into play in the abuse. So
And sometimes you don't know that you're a victim until afterwards. You
Right.
literally wake up like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened to me.
Right.
That should not have happened.
right,
And to kind of backpedal and answer your question, V, in other countries, in Spain and South Korea, the age of consent is 13. More than 30 other countries recognize the age of consent as 14. So it often is a cultural thing.
yeah. I mean, I look at my grandparents. That was many years ago. My grandfather is 15 years old. Well, he was 15 years older than my grandmom, and they had 5 children. So, you know, that was the norm.
It's just weird.
So in today's society, and because all of us are parents, what happened to the parents and where they was? Now we mentioned Aaliyah's parents because they was right there. Look, they was right there. But what are our thoughts about that? That the parents were saying, "Oh, it's R. Kelly. Oh, it's R. Kelly."
Yeah, go ahead, girl. Do your thing. Do your thing.
You want that record deal?
Yeah, I know they were.
Right.
And he was paying them, like flying them up.
Exactly.
Like, it was some.
Right.
It was.
Yeah,
It was
there
all
was some
involved.
trade-offs. There was
Right.
some. There was some.
Right.
You
So
know,
getting on television and sobbing, that I'm just not buying all of
You
that.
created that. He would
Right.
literally
You created
say
that
in the
environment.
document,
Right.
like people's, "Have your mother call me?" or "Did you ask your mother?" Like he was
getting consent. He was getting consent. Like,
For
so
the
he
parents.
wasn't
Yeah.
he wasn't that off. He was
Right.
getting
Getting
consent.
consent.
The
Right.
document highlighted that he was like, "What your mama say?" Or the parents would be
And
like,
I
"Yeah,
believe
we
that.
talk to R. Kelly every week." You have your 17-year-old daughter with a known creep,
Right.
but you talking to him every week, and it's okay long as she's in the studio.
yeah.
Is that pimping?
Somebody
got paid in exchange
Yeah.
for-
I mean, you can call it what you want, but that's a certain
I'ma
level.
call it
of-
pimping.
Yeah, it's a certain level.
He
of
should
pimping.
go down.
Pays
Because
for the come up.
it's funny, but not funny.
Right.
Because as a parent, you know,
Parents should go down just like he going down.
I always said that.
So-
and when you get on, I think it's the one, Jacelyn.
Jocelyn.
Jocelyn.
Jocelyn, yeah.
Her parents, they've been making their rounds, and I think they should be held accountable as well because they were the ones that introduced her to R. Kelly, and she's the one that's highly visible. She's doing the interviews.
On TMZ.
Exactly, and I'm fine, and I'm not being held.
Yeah,
She
against
can't.
my will.
I can't tell you where I'm at, but I'm fine.
Right.
So
And I'm not being
it's-
held against my will.
right.
Even though I can probably run out the door.
I totally could have ran out the door. He's not
Right.
even here. He's not
Right,
even there half
right.
the
He
time.
on tour, cover the country.
It's weird. It's a weird
Yeah,
situation.
it's
all
really
around.
it's really weird.
Okay, so
but-
since we talked about the parents, and again, I'm still gonna call it pimping. If
of course
you are
Parent pimping.
you are getting parental pimping. If you are getting money and or financial gain from your child hanging out, and we're going to doubt based upon the lyrics of all Kelly songs. He wants to have sex, and he's giving you ways
All
that he
the
wants to have
time.
sex, all the ways he's going to do it, when he wants to do it, what he's going to bring to it. So we're going to, I think, comfortably assume that was the exchange.
Right.
of course.
So what about the family members, the people that knew, his assistants, his producers, the people that were, in the band that saw him? He said, "Oh yeah, go get her number, get her all that stuff."
Lifetime just brought it to light. Now everybody's outraged and mute R. Kelly, but everybody knew prior to Lifetime.
But are you going to drop your coin for dropping the dime to say that my man is doing all of this, and he has a repeated pattern of pathologically lying and manipulating these young girls,
Right.
and I'm an accomplice to that,
Right.
am I going to stop my
Somebody should have protected those young
$5,000,
girls.
$10,000 that he's
Exactly.
paying me, you know, on a regular basis to blow up his spot and me lose everything? These are the sort of
You gotta do it. Yeah.
But you have to get back to the point where the
Or was it
morality
that
and
bad?
the integrity of who you are definitively on the inside actually comes to fruition
Right.
and begins to back up and starts taking accountability for the actions that you perform
Absolutely.
around and on behalf of other individuals. Whether they paying you $1 million or $1 in your pocket, I will never compromise the integrity of who I am in order to facilitate the lifestyle of the rich and famous on the back end.
Thank you. Amen.
I think adults
Yeah, we need more.
owe
more
a
parents.
responsibility to everyone's child, no matter who they are, in order to speak up in the event of known exploitation. Especially for young African American women, where, you know, this typically is known to happen, but we treat it as if it's on the back burner, not a big issue, because everybody believes the African American girl is just looking for the next come up. You know, she's out of the inner city, not real educated, as they stereotypically may say, which has been proven false on you know, numerous occasions. But people need to understand that we need to go back to the way things used to be, where every adult took the opportunity to rear, to help raise,
And be responsible.
and be responsible for the village that came up behind them.
And
that's
this is where I'm
what
going
we
to
need to get
interject
back
that
to.
point. Stop telling people to stop talking to your kids. Because that's how we kind of went away. Don't be talking to my kid like that.
Right.
Shut up. I just caught your kid getting in a car with a 32-year-old man. Did you know that? You know, no, because you at
Red
work.
Corvette.
Look. Okay. A little red Corvette.
Two-seater.
So yeah, I mean, I'm in perfect agreement with that, David. That we should all be held accountable for our community and what's going on, and that comes to that, you know, pulling somebody's coattails, shirt tails, even their girlfriends.
Yep.
You know, where were these young girls' friends?
Girl,
One of them was actually in
They was together.
Yeah, they was together.
right.
Like, girl, you better go ahead. We're going to go to the mall. We're going to go to Forever 21. We're going to get our outfit.
Right.
Yeah, he's a 32-year-old man. Did that? No, because again, she made it big now. My girl going to bring me up behind me.
But not only is he a 32-year-old, he's a 32-year-old. Well, I don't know how old he was
At that time.
Right. With the history of
Being a creep.
Right. I mean, I was watching on the internet of how many allegations that he has been brought up on for.
It has been proven false time
Yes!
and time again.
False.
I'm
Even
like-
the alleged tapes.
It was
which,
so many, the timeline, and I couldn't believe it. You know, it was like
So
so
here's my
many.
thing.
well, you got to have
cases.
witnesses. You got to
Yes,
have witnesses.
and that's actually
And
that
they've
was
been
my next
paid
point.
off. Exactly. So
I'm on the side of the law, but the law, I don't think, does victims of domestic abuse, legalized prostitution, if you will, pimping and all of that. The law does not do them justice when you do not have an individual or a timeline of events that corroborates the actual sexual misconduct that actually took place.
So what are the laws that were broken in this situation? Like, based on what was presented in a lifetime, what are the laws that were broken?
Allegedly, they are kidnapping, being held, of course, against your will, sexual abuse, physical abuse, and statutory rape.
Right.
So
Okay.
I think, to my knowledge, when I last checked, those were the 5. And apparently, the state is starting to look into it, because the last time he was brought up on charges, and y'all know he just had a birthday, had a big old party, and females was yelling, and y'all can find this anywhere on social media. Take me hostage, take me hostage, I want to be too. And so you're like, okay. But notwithstanding, we have to look into the last allegations, the P tape. From back 2008.
Yeah.
First of all, I thought that was Avant on the tape. I was like, that looked like Avant.
Sparkle said that was her niece.
Yeah.
I don't care who y'all thought he was.
Right.
And
That's
I
my
looked at the
niece.
young lady and I'm like, okay, well, she definitely looked young, but she was doing stuff that I'm like, I don't even know that.
That looked like
how's she
attributed behavior.
Again,
You
it
know, I've
wasn't
never seen
something
the video.
that she
I've never
was
seen
not
it either.
exposed to.
I went looking for it. It's not
It wasn't
available.
something that she was. Now that doesn't make it right, but again, he was acquitted of all those charges.
And somebody's like, you can't watch it online. It's child pornography if you do.
Yes.
I was like,
Well,
cool.
Wow.
well, that's also a good
So
point.
y'all
that
was
you
watching
brought up.
child pornography in 2008.
Look, I was actually in I was in a place at the time. Actually, yeah, the answer is yes. But going back into that as a point of context, having sex with someone under the 18, while we talked about before the age of consent, anytime you film anyone under 18, there's no age of consent. It's all pornography.
Yes.
And that's across the board.
That's when teenagers exchange nude pictures as child pornography.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Today.
In
Now,
the
mind
school.
you couldn't do a lot of it back in the day when a lot of these laws were written, but a whole lot of people committing child pornography, most of them in high school. And
They
junior
are
high
children.
and
So 16 and 16 videotaping their behavior, that's child
Child
It's
pornography.
still child pornography.
And that's illegal for them.
Correct.
Yep.
And whoever
Above 18 is
that's felony.
Right.
it's pornography.
It's
Yeah, it's
still
just
There's
regular porn,
legalities
and it's
involved.
usually legal.
But then the legal
Pornhub, all that good stuff.
the legal side that comes in, if it's two 16-year-old children filming each other,
child
that's,
porn.
It's
that's
still
child
child
pornography.
pornography.
But they're not
But
held accountable.
once it crosses the legal age of 18, it's still child pornography, but the male or female can be held in felony contempt for statutory
rape.
rape.
So I want to ask this question then. Is this situation strictly about men over women, right? Because we hear a lot of stuff in the society that makes the behavior men to women so horrible, but every now and again you might hear a school teacher mess with a high school boy, and it kind of just like
And the first thing men say,
it's kind of just like, oh, that happened.
where were
That's
these
how
hot
teacher
chicks
when
when
I
I
was
was
in
in school?
Like, where was that? And
There's
it-
a ton of cases like that.
right, you get a white woman pregnant by a student, right?
And they get married. And have
And then it's like, okay, it's... But, like, when you hear, like, the gym teacher do it, right?
Right.
That's male. It's, like, blown up for a whole week.
Shame on
right?
him.
Shame on
him.
him. Yeah.
But are we addressing this predatory sexual mindset regardless of sex? Are we really
No.
dealing with it?
No.
I think it's more.
And what is it that makes...
It's biased.
It's bias.
It's biased.
I think it's more attributed that men have a more of a sexualized, predatory / manipulative type of demeanor versus
It's that testosterone.
it's the testosterone.
It's the testosterone.
Versus the more
That's science.
feminine side is like, oh,
Docile.
you know, so
Nurturing.
innocent.
Get you a cougar and see if she lets you out the house.
Hey, where's the cougar at?
35 and older, you might...
Let's close this loop real quick. So since 2018, when R. Kelly was acquitted of all those charges, things went silent.
2008, right?
2008, my apologies, 2008, things went silent. So we're going to safely assume that he did not stop doing that.
No,
But
the
things
path
remained
continued to
quiet.
last year.
He continued on that pathology, and his friends and his enablers, they continued to let these things happen. So that's one, and I believe we're all in agreement that they should all go down and they should all be held accountable, because it definitely affects our community, particularly because you're here, Pam. That type of adolescent sexual abuse is usually the gateway for domestic violence to occur.
Absolutely.
And so that's why this whole issue is very important, because that's the greater concern that we need to be wary of, that this is going to affect our community in a much greater sense.
So the cult that's currently in operation now, as we talked about earlier, these women aren't being held against their will. There's not like we haven't heard about any guns, being.
It's not Rick James, right?
It's
not
Rick
basement chains.
right? These women are walking around freely in the house, depending on who's there.
Sometimes
can
there
easily-
are allegations
yeah,
of the doors were
right.
locked.
The doors were locked.
And they have handcuffs, but they're using them for other
But you
stuff.
got windows and you got every other avenue that's available to you. You can pick up
Right.
the phone, possibly go in the back closet when homeboy you sleep in the corner.
But
Right, but I've heard there have been wellness checks by the police on a regular basis,
Yeah.
and
Florida, California, and then Illinois, I think.
And
right?
they all come out
three
fine.
places.
Atlanta, Georgia,
Right.
it was Georgia. They did it
So,
in Georgia and Illinois. Yeah.
yeah.
But again, that's all part of that manipulation. You know, you're going to say what
the
you need to say
Stockholm
so that you
syndrome.
can. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
We're
So
good.
can
We eat.
explore that, right? Because I believe the power of the individual, right? I believe you allow stuff to happen. You can only Martin Luther King. What is it? Is it Martin Luther King or Malcolm X? One of those figures said, "A man can only ride your back if you bent over." Right?
I think that was Malcolm X.
Okay, all right. So at what point, and I've never been victimized mentally or emotionally to find myself in that space. I can't speak to it, but I would like to understand how you go from this space to then this space, right? And you're helpless. How does that happen?
I'm going to, and as our time is winding down, it's important to note that it's the mindset, that it's a lack of education and immaturity. When you don't know, and I'm sure Pam can concur, when you don't know that you're a victim, you rationalize it as normal.
Right.
And it's not a problem until
And there
someone
has
else
to be
is
a
aware.
master manipulator, like a master manipulator involved.
And the simple fact that these girls are still being, quote unquote, taken care of, you know, the flashy lifestyles or whatever it may be. He's flying me to this particular place and that particular place. They see this as luxury, potentially. And the sad part about that is, as you say, hindsight is 20/20. They don't know that they're actually victims because they feel like then essentially I've normalized this behavior and this is the behavior of what it takes to be a part of the lifestyle of the rich and famous. So I'll do and what I have to do on the back end and endure this abuse until there's a light at the end of the tunnel, the light being I'm with this guy permanent.
I like it.
And
Right.
because of who he is.
And then if you listen to the women that have gotten out, they call it a relationship.
Right.
But he just has a relationship with multiple women at one time.
And that was the word that was used.
Yeah,
it was a
well, when I
bonafide
was
relationship.
in a relationship with R. Kelly, this is what happened. It's like, okay, so they view themselves as being in a relationship with him. He's not, in their eyes, they're not just there and just walking around and there are other women. They're like all in a relationship where they all have sexual relations with him, sometimes together. So that there are emotional ties there, just like with the Stockholm syndrome.
So the girl at the end, what's her name? Monica. She was 35 years old,
yeah.
and she had a different take on being in a relationship with R. Kelly. And she consented, and she professed in her own testimony, I was okay with him having different relationships because I just got out of divorce. I ain't want all that anyway. It was cool.
Right.
So it's just like how do you go from I'm with it to I'm the victim? Like I just see that you open this
I'm
door.
curious about that.
You
also.
open this door
Right.
to put yourself in this inconvenient, unusual situation that you seem to be a part of. Everybody seemed to be a part of the weirdness.
It's that
at
breakup
first.
syndrome.
Right, but
Right.
you, like
That's
you said,
what
she's
she got
35.
married.
You're too old. Pretty
So
much,
now-
you aged out.
You're 35 and you're
You
with
ain't
art. You're
right.
like, I'm with it. I see what you're doing. Okay, cool. And then you on a documentary talking about you the victim.
Yeah.
Because
Like
she went
how?
from being number 1 to number 27.
Exactly.
So,
It's just like the bottom, bottom B syndrome.
The
Yeah,
crab
yeah,
barrel
yeah,
syndrome.
exactly.
I'm doing what I got to do to get to the top. And once
Right.
this is all just.
Okay.
But no, like a
Fluff in the
pimp with
backbone.
his,
But
prostitute.
he's lying all the way through. Like so,
That's a
like.
manipulator.
They know that.
That's
Yeah, they
exactly
know
what they do.
But you come into the R. Kelly situation knowing what it is. Like a pimp, I meet you, I'm your everything. You don't know what I got going on. I'm lying to you. I'm not honest with you. I'm like, hey, babe, what's up? I'm a pimp. You trying to get down with this game? And you say, hell no. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I get when men lie to women and
But when
lead
you knowingly,
them
yes.
down a path
Right.
And
of
this wasn't the
untruth
case.
and
Right.
deception. This R. Kelly situation was like everybody knew what was going on, and
Everybody.
they still walked into it expecting something different, which to me means insanity.
Right.
Well, when the court of law exonerates you from all charges, do you now go, oh, these women were just lying. These stories were all just made up, so
And the women
there's
say,
nothing to see here.
okay.
There's nothing to see here. This is all
Right.
manipulative.
So
innocent,
I'm
innocent.
like,
I don't
where's the breaking
understand.
point? How do you exit and then now you're a victim?
Manufactured
Right.
outrage.
How do you?
Now, we're actually going to discuss that next week on part 2 because we are out of time. I think that it's important for us to make sure that our viewers recognize that while we brought everything on the table, we need to provide input on how do we fix it and how we prevent it from happening. Not only from the young women, because we see again that it is a path to domestic violence. It's also a path toward juvenile delinquency.
Yes.
But you also run that risk of people getting into different types of other issues like pregnancy. And also
STDs.
pimping and other things of that nature. So again, we're definitely going to come back next week and discuss that, and we'll also have some more stats on famous people that had relationships with minors, and we'll also have some more facts and figures from the individual states with regard to ages of consent and some of the cases that have made it. There are a couple of cases that were recently adjudicated this year from parents that were pimping their kids, that were found guilty of pimping their kids and giving them to older men. So again, when we come back next week, we'll talk about that. We appreciate you all for tuning in today. As always, we hope you like everything that we said, but if not, at least you heard it. We'll see you back next week.
We here at Vox Wave believe that no one in the DMV should go without a coat this
Somebody
winter.
gotta
So
tell
we
me
partnered
how
with Star
you go
Imports
from-
dealership for this year's annual coat drive. If you have an old or gently used coat that can still be worn, drop it off with us. Vox Wave Studios at 4711 Off Place, Suitland, Maryland, and give the gift of warmth to somebody in need in the DMV.